In 1972, a group of 8 members of the Toronto Society for Psychical Research invented a fictional ghost named Philip Aylesford, wrote him a biography they knew to be false, and within months reported that a table had begun answering their questions by rapping against the floor. The experiment was the design of Dr. A.R.G. Owen, a mathematician and geneticist who had spent years at the edge of two worlds, the rigorous architecture of empirical science and the murkier territory of psychical research. Owen was not a credulous man. He was not interested in proving that the dead could speak. He was interested in a more precise, and in some ways more troubling question, whether a group of living people, through sustained collective belief and focused expectation, could produce phenomena that resembled what investigators had spent centuries attributing to the supernatural. The Philip experiment was his mechanism for finding out. The group he assembled was ordinary by design, 8 people, no claimed sensitives, no professional mediums, no one with a history of paranormal experience. They met regularly, and together they built a man who had never existed. Philip Aylesford was given a century, the 17th, and a country house in Warwickshire, and a wife named Dorothea, cold and imperious, and a lover named Margot, described as a Romany woman with dark eyes and knowledge of the old practices. In the story the group constructed, Philip's wife discovered the affair. She reported Margot as a witch. Margot was burned. Philip, consumed by guilt he could not survive, died by his own hand in 1654. Every detail of this was fabricated. Every date, every name, every stone of the house. The group was explicit about this among themselves. Philip Aylesford had not lived. He had not died. He had not loved anyone. For months, they sat with him anyway. The early sessions followed the traditional format of the seance: dim light, a circular table, hands placed flat, silence held, nothing happened. The table did not move. The room did not change temperature. Philip did not answer. The group tried again and again. The silence held. What Owen observed during these sessions was a kind of accumulated frustration, a mounting collective tension that produced nothing. The structure itself, he concluded, might be the obstacle, the solemnity of the seance format, its theatrical weight pressing down on whatever process he was attempting to isolate. He changed the approach. The group began meeting in ordinary light. They spoke freely, made conversation, occasionally laughed. The atmosphere shifted from ritual to something closer to an evening among friends who happened to be sitting around a table and concentrating quietly on a dead man who had never lived. Within these sessions, the reports began, a rap against the surface of the table, then another. The group established a code: 1 rap for yes, 2 raps for no, and Philip, or whatever was producing the sound, used it. The table, according to the group's accounts, moved. It tilted. On at least one occasion, it reportedly crossed the room. In some sessions, participants described cold air moving against their skin in a room with no open windows. In 1974, a documentary crew from Toronto's New World Films recorded a session. The table movements appear in the footage. Colin Wilson, among other researchers who reviewed the film, noted that the movements documented on camera were inconsistent with the patterns one would expect from standard vibration or involuntary muscular action. The unconscious, rhythmic pressure that debunkers had long proposed as the explanation for table phenomena. Wilson did not claim this settled anything. He noted an inconsistency. The footage exists. The movements are in it. Owen published his findings in 1976 in a book called Conjuring Up Philip. His conclusion was careful and deliberately bounded. If the phenomena were genuine, and he treated that conditional with the seriousness it deserved, then they suggested something specific, that psychokinetic energy, generated not by any external entity, but by the psychology of the group itself, could produce physical effects in the material world. The group had not contacted Philip. Philip was not there to be contacted. They had built him out of language and shared attention and emotional investment in a story they knew to be false, and something had answered. Owen did not resolve the secondary question that this raised, and he was precise enough to name it directly. If the source of the phenomena was the group's own psychology, their collective expectation, their pooled attention, the energy produced by 8 minds focused on a single invented point, then what exactly were they contacting? Not Philip, not a dead man, not any entity that had ever possessed a body or drawn breath or felt guilt about a woman burning in a field in the 17th century. What answered the questions was something that did not exist before they created it, and presumably ceased to exist when they stopped believing in it, unless it did not. The table is still out there somewhere, presumably in an archive or a storage room, or simply gone. The footage from 1974 sits in whatever condition 30-year-old film sits in. The 8 participants have grown older or died. Philip Aylesford remains exactly what he always was, a collection of invented details, a name applied to nothing, a biographical fiction constructed to fill a chair at a table where something eventually showed up. What Owen's experiment could not determine, what no methodology available to him could have determined, was whether the phenomena arose from the group's psychology projecting outward into the physical world, or whether the act of sustained collective belief had done something stranger, had called into existence, from no prior material, a thing that had not been there before they named it. Philip was made up, something answered to the name.